really strong low pressure center that was moving into the area. We had moisture down to the south. If you remember right, it was a really cloudy, foggy day, at least at first, but all that lifted north over time, and it just set up a really strong wind shear environment that was favorable for tornadoes, obviously. I will say the Storm Prediction Center of the National Weather Service, they had an outlook 7 days in advance because this looked like a pretty predictable system. So it was something where from day 7 all the way to day 1, we were pretty focused on eastern Nebraska and western Iowa for tornado potential. The storms initiated way down by Fairbury, at least the very first ones of the day. And as those rolled up into the Lincoln area, they organized quickly, but it still took about an hour before they were able to produce tornadoes. Once it started, though, it was within 2 to 3 minutes of that first tornado touching down. That thing intensified to EF3 very quick when it hit some of the buildings down there. The same parent storm that spawned the Waverly and Lincoln tornado, as well as several others, it basically spun up rapidly, kind of tightened up, as we like to say when we're looking at the radar. It tightened up and then right at that point developed a tornado.
This is our farm, Sycamore Farms, where we have junk stock, and we had a massive tornado skirt the edge of the farm. Pretty bad tree damage and some roof damage, but really lucky comparatively to a lot of other people in the neighborhood. We're trying to get cleaned up, and just talked to OPPD. They said we'll have power. People from around the community that I don't even know that showed up with chainsaws, and we're getting a lot of work done yesterday and today, so we're feeling very good and lucky. Yeah, our big barn took pretty good wind damage, lost half of the roof on it, so we're putting a new roof on that. And then our house, we had a big tree fall on the house and took out the chimney and big hole in the attic, so we've got that patched, and actually we're putting a new roof on there this morning as well. You know, I really didn't think it was gonna hit us or be a tornado. We've had several close calls with bad storms out here and always really lucked out, and just didn't think that it was really gonna happen, but once it did, it was pretty scary, pretty intense. We were in the basement. I had several people that were out here helping us get set up, my kids, my wife, everybody just burrowed into the basement, and you know, we were safe there. Heard a lot of noise and wind, and our ears all popped. But we were all safe, so that was the main thing. It's pretty unbelievable, really. I thought maybe we had a branch or two down, but to come down and see probably 30 or 40 trees down was sad and you know, intimidating to just the task ahead. But I can't believe how much work we got done yesterday with all the people that showed up, and a bunch of kids from my kids' school are coming today, the baseball team, to help clean up, so we'll make a dent.
It intensified greatly into one of the stronger tornadic radar signatures that we've seen in quite some time in this area. And it came straight into the Elkhorn area.
We probably had about 450 to maybe 500 stones that were affected in some manner, some quite devastatingly as far as broken pieces left behind. Some were just knocked over. We've had 3 monument companies that have been working since Saturday.
We're just out here helping the cemetery get back on their feet. They got Memorial Day coming up later this month, and just trying to get people taken care of. So basically we're picking them all back up off the ground and setting them back up on sticks, then we'll re-putty them and set them all back down, and most of them are probably between 600 and 1,800 pounds, I'd say.
They have just stepped up, and right now it's just volunteer work, and they are not charging us. If anything is really broken, they're kind of leaving in place to let the families see what's happening, and so that they can contact individual monument companies that worked on that marker to come out and assess the situation and get it fixed.
Yeah, it's tight quarters. You don't have a lot of room, and you try not to tear up the cemetery, and so it's a little bit tricky because granted it's very dense, but it's also very fragile.
We do have a fund for the cemetery set up that will be put on the website for Richmond Funeral Homes, and people will be able to donate if they'd like to for the restoration down the road for the trees, and helping also give some compensation to the monument companies that are helping us right now.
Approximately 10 minutes before it reached the more populated areas of Elkhorn, we issued our office's very first tornado emergency for the storm. That's when you have a particularly strong, violent tornado moving into a highly populated area. where you anticipate a significant response from emergency responders is going to be needed. That was the very first time our office has ever done that here in eastern Nebraska. And that was because it was such a strong signal on radar. We were just starting to get damage reports from our spotters, and so we knew where it was moving, and unfortunately it did move straight into the town. As we got into the west side of Omaha, I believe that we were over 45 minutes of warning time before the tornadoes entered the area, and even once we got up to Blair, it was similar as well.
So the window was shaking in and out, and like we just saw dust, like inhaled a bunch of dust, and just heard shattering.
And then what happened to your house then?
It got destroyed.
Is everybody all right then, or?
Yeah.
So who else is there with you?
So it's my stepmom and then my sister.
What was it like when you heard the tornado warning? Did you go down right away, or?
Well, we waited up here for a little while until it got pretty dark out. Then our phone went off, and then we finally went off for the second time, and then we went down there.
And we saw a black wind swirling and coming towards us. That's when my wife warned us, let's go hit the basement, and everything gone like in seconds. It's hard to say. I never imagined anything like this in my life. And as a result, we lost all our valuables, all the memories of my late mother. I lost my mother when I am so young, when I was 9 years old, and I had a picture album and some of the memories that I saved from years with my mother. When I lost it, we thought like we could never get it back. And a couple of days later, when my wife was at a hospital getting treated for the injury that she sustained during the incident, a good gentleman was sharing some pictures in a Facebook post, telling that, do you happen to know this picture? And the first picture that he happened to show my wife is my late mother's picture. And knowing that, we felt very emotional, that my mother was trying to find us from far away. She's trying to signal us that she's there for us during these tough times. It was all absolute miracle, and they found the picture actually 42 miles away from this place. It's in a city called Tekema, Nebraska. And we really would have not been alive if my wife would have not rushed us into the basement that very second. Everything started collapsing, like debris falling out. I rushed my son into the HVAC room because that's the only door, and we were away from my wife. My wife was stuck in the stairs, and she got injured because the drywall was falling on her, and she got injuries all over body, like debris was flying, and she was out open on the stairs. And when we saw, immediately we were trying to grab few things for my son. It was so heartbreaking. My wife and I, we couldn't watch all his stuff scattered everywhere around like this. This all process was such a traumatic to my family, but miracles like this kind of gave us strength to move forward. That's one thing that struck our mind when that happened. We took it as a very good signal. My mother's trying to signal us from far away. She's with us. She's gonna take care of us.
It was a long track tornado, lasted quite a while. Not many tornadoes in the national record have lasted that long. From this point, the storm morphed a little bit, where we have downdrafts that are pushing a little harder in certain areas. It actually caused a couple of more northerly jogs in the tornado track.
Because we lost power and we didn't know what was happening. And then I go inside because it's getting closer, and I saw the one pop up over here, and I watched it the whole way just go through our neighborhood. So she was yelling at me. I thought I was having a heart attack. To see a tornado go through your backyard is the scariest thing I've ever seen. We're cleaning up the debris so we can help our neighbors and get back to some sort of normalcy.
The good news is that there were a lot of good stories. There were stories, the ones that stick with me are the stories of people who did what they've been told to do when a tornado approaches, and it worked. So a lot of stories of people who went to the basement, and not just that, but once they were in the basement, they found the safest part of the basement, whether it was a bathroom against the back wall, and even one family who stood in the shower, in the bathtub, and that was the only place in their basement that was untouched by this tornado. They had no home above them, they had no back wall of their basement, but the room they were in was fine, and so were they. There were a handful of stories like that just really emphasizes the safety aspects that we've been teaching for years, that they do work, even in some of the strongest tornadoes.
It's my dad's property, and neither one of us were home. My dad was home and my stepmom and my son was in the basement. So I called them when I found out on the news that we were going to be a direct hit. It's been chaotic, sad. There's a lot of emotions that go along with it. But I think one of the biggest things is, despite the devastation, initially we had so much help, so it just kind of restores your faith in humanity. So we stayed with my mom post-tornado, and our cat got out of the garage, and she's used to the country, not the city. I posted on Lost Pets of Omaha, and nobody had seen her really, and we moved back out here for looters and made our dog happy, you know, just it's home. But it really wasn't home without her. And it was cat week last week, and so I was looking through some photos, and it's getting colder out, and my heart was hurting, and I just prayed she was safe, so I posted on Lost Pets of Omaha again, and within 24 hours, we got a phone call and said, "We have your cat."
Yeah, it's an animal, but it's one big, say, happy family back.
The Omaha tornado of 1975 was an F4 as well. So again, very intense tornadoes. This is the type of tornado that if it comes upon a solidly constructed home, there's a good chance that it will sweep it clean, and there will just be a foundation or a basement left.
I've been where a couple other tornadoes have gone through, but this one was my property, my buildings, my equipment. Right here where we're standing, I had 2 machine sheds and 4 grain bins. There was several pieces of equipment in the sheds. They all got taken along with the sheds. There's absolutely nothing left of the sheds. One grain bin's still here without a roof, and that's only because it had beans in it. They're probably a third of a mile away from here. There's a creek that runs through that farm, and the tree line in the creek stopped them, so they're all down there in the tree line. Fields are pretty rough. It must have really rained hard right in that tornado, because the ground out there is just like concrete. I had all my corn planted. It's amazingly, there's quite a bit of it coming up, but I don't think enough of it is. And as hard as that ground is and as packed as it is, I think I'm gonna have to tear it all up and replant all my corn. I bet it's been 20 years since I've had to replant, but it's not the first time. What I get done in the next 2 weeks, if I can get my corn replanted, get my beans planted, insurance is going to help a little bit with replant. We've put in a lot of hours of cleaning up the debris that was in the fields. We got a lot of volunteer help. I had friends, I had relatives, but it is pretty well cleaned up. I think it's farmable again.
What we can say is that people were able to see these tornadoes, which is a big plus in terms of verifying that it's coming and then having hopefully a couple of minutes to go seek a good shelter. So there are so many variables that go into it, but the destruction alone, nobody was lucky with this one for sure. Thankfully, the loss of life was not greater. The injury count was not greater either.